I was kind of disappointed when I saw your name was Ian that you didn't have a British accent.
Yeah.
I watched some of your...
People would take me a lot more seriously if I had a British accent, I think.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, so everyone, and I live in Los Angeles, so I seem like an anomaly that I photograph only the world's like endangered ecosystems and national parks and things like that. And how that happened is I also thought I'd never be a photographer. I thought that was the one thing I wouldn't be, and it's because my dad is a photographer, so I'm second generation, and he started young and started in classic rock and roll, and then went into architecture and corporate, and it's a tough business to make it in. And I was like, well, there's so many other things out there. I do like being creative. I thought I'd be in film, maybe somewhere in that area, but I never thought it'd be photography. But what happened was I moved from New Jersey to Montana for college, to Bozeman, and I was just north of Yellowstone National Park. And around when I was 14 years old, before I started looking at colleges, we took our first trip out west. And that changed my whole view of America and being outdoors. And around that same time, we also moved to a more rural part of New Jersey, and I was spending a lot of time outdoors there. And so all those things kind of simultaneously started to happen, and then culminated with my move to the university in Bozeman. And then that just set it in stone. My dad gave me my first 35mm SLR camera, and to that point I had never really shot for myself. But when I got there, it was so spectacular. Montana was so spectacular, not just the national park, but like driving down the road to class. Like you don't see the light come through clouds and big sky country, and I wanted to take pictures of that to send home to friends and say, you got to check this place out, you'll never believe it's real. And I started taking pictures, and they never really represented what I wanted it to look like, or what I was experiencing. And this is me deconstructing it 15, 20 years later. I'm looking at that process saying, okay, now I realize what I was doing at the time. It was me just trying to more accurately capture either what I was feeling or what I was almost, I don't know, not envisioning, but sort of like the experience. I was trying to capture not just the place, but the experience of the place. And it took me a number of years before I started to even achieve that feeling. But I continued at it because I enjoyed it so much. And moving to California after that, if it wasn't sealed in Montana, it did it in California, because we have the mountains with the beach and more national parks than any other state in the country. And I spent all of my spare time in those places, and then it just went from there.
So gearhead stuff.
Yeah.
Let's get it out of the way. Tell me about your kit. What do you take into the...
Well, it's been changing a lot lately. I've been trying to pare down because my bag was getting a little heavy at some point. My bag typically weighs about 40 pounds. And that's when I bring everything that I would want to bring with me. And it's still pretty streamlined. I always have a Canon 5D Mark II. That's what I shoot on. I'll usually bring two bodies if it's an important assignment, or I feel like I am in a situation where something might fail. But I usually try to just carry one body and have one backed up either in a car or hotel room or something like that. But my lenses are 16-35 f2.8, 70-200 2.8 IS image stabilized lens. I have a 24-70, which I call my all-around. That's the 2.8 lens. And that's great because it's a little bit wide, it's a little bit telephoto, and you can get real close and get sort of macro images. So it's just a nice one. If you don't know a situation and you only want to bring one camera and one lens, that's the one I usually go into a crowd with or something like that, because it's so diverse. I also have a 50mm macro, 2.5, and I also use extension tubes, 12mm and a 25mm extension tube, which I'll often stack. Also use them sometimes with my telephoto, 70-200. And then I have a 20mm prime, which I use for underwater photography in my housing. So I have a housing that I sometimes bring with me. Sometimes I bring it in the places people least expect underwater images, which works really well with trying to find new perspectives. I'll bring them in like vernal pools. I just did a shoot in Northern California, which are basically these seasonal pools that only last 3 months of the year after heavy rains, and there's life that kind of dwells up in them on ranch land. And so I just got in there with an underwater housing and photographed the life below and above and tried to show those perspectives. Same thing, I went to Glacier National Park. People always photograph the mountains. I got into the water with an underwater housing and photographed the trout sanctuaries and nurseries and swimming and what life looks like under the water in a national park in glacial water. So memory cards, I bring a lot of them. I usually bring about 100 gigs worth or more. As the cameras keep getting more megapixels and more, the large file sizes, then of course I have to accommodate my memory cards and a laptop and a hard drive with me always too.
Sure.
Back everything up. And then some filters, polarizer, neutral density filters. and tripods, a couple tripods, fluid head these days, but I usually bring both.
Gotcha.
And carbon fiber, always, because it's already heavy enough.